Hi everyone, I'm Christine and welcome back to my sewing studio. Today we'll be doing a sew with me and we'll be sewing this McCalls number M7487. There are 3 different sizes, small, medium, and large. I will be making the large today, mainly because I think it'll show up better on the video. I have made a small one. This is my prototype, and I've screwed up a few things on this. So this is the small size. Now, what I actually am doing on this one also, I am using my Cricut machine and my Cricut heat press to put some sayings on the front. This one says, "Hello, beautiful," in the iron-on. Now, I've screwed this one up in that I did not use the correct interfacing on the top, bottom, and the sides. I did not put piping on the bottom, and as you can see, it's not really a rectangle. I think it's more like a trapezoid, maybe. And maybe I was going for the trapezoid look. But this guy was not easy. I also, on here it calls for a double zipper in the front. I'll get to that in a second. So what I used just a regular zipper. But these are so cute because you open it up and you have an inside pocket with the zipper. And you've also got a little lining all the way, it's a little pocket all the way around that you could stick things in. So we will be making this. Now, like I said, so I made this and I made notes along the way. There are a few steps that are pretty confusing. So hopefully this will help, because I think the second time around, I know what I'm doing a little bit more, and hopefully it'll be a little bit easier. So the reason why I decided to make these, I actually went through my stash of fabric and cut up a bunch of my cotton material that I had left over. And actually, here's a quick little video on here of all of my different combinations I've got. And I've taken all of my cotton fabric, which if you see over here, I still have a lot of non-cotton fabric. I wanted to put pieces together, see what looked good. So these are some of the combinations I am thinking about doing. You can see Bella. Hi, Bella. I've got a lot of different patterns together, and I'm excited because I love mixing patterns. I don't get to do that a lot. So here are just some of my ideas. And what I'm going to do next is pull apart all of these and see how much fabric I have of each pattern to see if it will work. So as you can see, I have a lot of these travel cases to make. Some of them are small, medium, large, depending on how much fabric I had. And then I ran to Joann's and got the notions. Now, with these travel cases, you could easily use the same fabric for the outside and the inside. I will be using 2 different fabrics. The outside, I have this, I'm just calling it a funky, it's this brown, it's groovy looking, isn't it? I actually had this from a long time ago. I made a shirt out of it. Actually, I did not end up completely making this shirt. It was my very first button-up shirt that I was trying to make. I completely failed on it, but I did have some leftover fabric, and I just really like this fabric. So the sign I made for the front, it says "Fabulous" here. So I used an iron-on, and that's what is going on the front of this. Now, the inside fabric, otherwise known as the lining fabric, I'm using this brown, black, and white check. I think I made a dress out of this once, that I also don't think worked out very well. So there have been quite a few projects that have never seen the light of day outside of this house. So this is what my two fabrics are going to be. They are pretty contrasting, but I think the colors work well together. So you will need to get two different types of fabric, or again, like all the same. Now, the other thing you'll need is interfacing. You'll need just the regular interfacing that you just fuse on the back, but there's also two other types of interfacing, which I did not understand when I was making this one. I tell you, I read through all the instructions, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what they were talking about until I realized today that it calls for right under suggested fabrics. So if you look in the back, I made notes on here, but it says suggested fabrics. So interfacing number 2 is an 1/8 inch headline foam fabric interfacing. Now what that is, it's just a squishier interfacing. So when I ran to Joann's this morning, because like I said, I didn't have it this morning, he said this is the interfacing that you use when you want it fluffy on the inside. So this interfacing will be used for the sides and the top and the bottom. Then you've got interfacing number 3, which is a sew-in extra firm craft weight interfacing. And that's this interfacing, which I know you can't really tell the difference on camera, but this stuff is stiff. So that's what he said. This is what you use when you want it stiff. So those are the two interfacings that you'll have to get. You will also need 2 different types of zippers. For the inner zipper, which you'll want for the little pocket, it says it's a 4.5 size. I do believe it is just a standard zipper. That is what I used on this little guy, and I actually did do that part right, although I sewed it in backwards. This is that little zipper. So for the small, or for the large case, you need a 7 inch. It does tell you exactly what size zippers you'll need down here under the notions. Each size bag has a slightly different size zipper, but basically what you want is for it to fit inside the case, the top of the case, just a regular zipper. So I got a black one to fit with my brown and black fabric on the inside. Now the exterior zipper is the difficult one. I'm just giving you a heads up. I ran to Joann's to get them, and they're calling the exterior zippers for the small and the medium are 30 inches long, and the large is a 40-inch long zipper. And you may not know this if you've never bought large zippers like this before, but they don't carry large zippers very often. Most of the zippers at Joann's are, and I'm just talking about Joann's because that's where I go, are fabric zippers. Now they do have purse zippers, which is the double zip. And I have an example of it in this black zipper here. You can see it's basically got 2 zippers, 2 of the pulls here, 2 pulls right here. You open it up both ways. That's what the instructions are calling for. However, I couldn't find them at Joann's. So on this one, I made one with a regular zipper, and what I found was the robe zippers are long enough. This is one of the robe zippers, and it's got, oh, this was the robe zipper I was going to use. So it's got the word robe on it. And these are 36 inches long. They also come in 30 inches long. I basically cleaned out Joann's. They only had about 4 of them. So you've got this long of a zipper. You basically either use the robe, or there are extra long zippers, but they were out of those at Joann's. So I went home and I got on Amazon, and that is where I found these black long double pull zippers. Now I also needed white, and I can't remember if I just couldn't find them or if I just accidentally bought these, This is a long enough zipper. It is thicker. It's a parka zipper, I believe they call it, because it's more like for a coat, but it is a single zipper, which is fine. This will just be the same way as on here. You know what? It's not a big deal if it opens up from the side, okay? It still opens. So I'm not gonna worry about it. What I actually originally was planning on doing was using a white zipper for the front, but now that I'm holding it up against my fabric, that's not white. That is more of a beige. So the white does not look very good. Since I've got this black Fabulous on the front, I think what I'm just gonna do is use one of my new black zippers that have the double pull. So there you go. I've got now a ton of extra zippers, but I also have a ton of different projects I'm doing. So hopefully when I get to the end, I'll have the correct zipper with the correct product. So there you go, that's what you'll need. You need one outside zipper that is 40 inches long. It can be double pull or not. And then an inside zipper, you need 7 inches for a small, 9 inches for a medium, 12 for a large. And this is a 7-inch. So I think it'll be fine. Like I said, it has to match up with the inside. This is the inside. My zipper needs to fit on the inside, and it will fit just fine. So I'm using a 7-inch. You will also need something to make the piping along the top and the bottom. Now, they've got a pattern piece in here. For the large, it's number 29. This is basically what you cut 2 of to make the piping. I do not have enough material because it is cut on the bias, so it's basically cut like this. So you need quite a lot of material. You for sure want it cut on the bias because then it's stretchy. And what you do, if you have enough material and you're able to cut out your fabric for the piping, you'll want to get a cord, a 3/8 inch cord, and you will cut out 2 pieces of this, and then this is wrapped around it for the piping. Since I did not have enough fabric to cut this, I went ahead and bought my piping. And this is just a bias tape maxi piping. And basically what it is, and I got a brown, which now I've got brown piping, black zipper, whatever. This is basically a pre-made piping. You've got the cord already in there. You see the little white, and then I've got a brown fabric bias tape wrapped around the cord. So I've got pre-made piping. So those are all the things you'll need. Now, for each travel case, you will need to cut out all the pieces in that section. The small, you will be cutting out 1 through 10, medium is 11 through 20, and large is 21 through 30. So there are quite a few pieces, and there's quite a lot of interface cutting. This is the part that got really confusing to me. Now, what I did originally was I cut out the infusible interfacing and I put it on every single piece. Like I said in the beginning, I got all confused as to what was needed. What you actually do with the infusible interfacing is you are going to apply it to the lining, which is the interior fabric of the sides, the tops, the bottom, the upper and lower sections, which is basically on the inside where your pocket goes, the tabs, and the pocket. So basically, if you're doing a small, you will cut out pieces 1 through 8 in the interfacing. I believe most of them are duplicated, so I believe you do 2 of each of those. If you're doing a medium, it's pieces 11 through 18, and if it's a large, it's pieces 21 through 28. Now, interfacing number 2, which like I said is the foamy kind, the squishy foamy kind, that one you are going to be using for the outside fabric, and you are basically using it for the sides, the top and bottom, and the tabs. So for the small, you will be cutting it, and I believe it's one piece of both sides. So you'll be cutting pieces 1 through 3, and 3 is the top and bottom. So the 3 interface on all of them, you'll be cutting 2 pieces because it goes the top and the bottom. And then you will be cutting it out of piece number 7, which is just a little tab. If you're doing if you're doing a medium, it's pieces 11 through 13. Number 13 is the duplicated one, and then number 17 is the tab. And if you're doing a large, which is what I'm doing, you're going to do 21 through 23, and then 23 is the top and bottom, and then the tab is number 27. Then the stiff interfacing is just for the top and bottom. So you will be cutting 2 of them though, because you've got top and bottom. In the small, it is piece number 3, the medium is piece number 13, and the large is piece number 23. So can you see why I got all confused? Okay, so step number 1 talks about pinning the interfacing to the sides and top and bottom. And this is the exterior fabric, so the outside fabric. So it is actually the interfacing number 2, the cushiony interfacing will go onto your outside fabric pieces. This is the outside this is the top and bottom piece. And then we have the side piece, the large side piece, and the thin side piece. So go ahead and do that. I had actually I had already put the regular interfacing on here, but I was able to fuse the thick interfacing to the fabric. So that worked out good. But just feeling the thickness now, this is not going to be fun sewing this, I can tell you right now, because there are a lot of layers that go into it. And now that we've got an interfacing on there, a thicker interfacing, it's going to be a little tough. Step number 2 is you're going to take the regular interfacing and fuse it to the lining pieces. You've got the side, which I'm going to go by the small size. I've got those in my notes. So this is side piece number 1, side piece number 2, and again, these are the lining pieces. And then you've got the top and bottom, which is piece number 3. So you've got 2 pieces of piece number 3 with the interfacing. You also have the handle, which is your outside fabric, piece number 4. Then you've got the upper section, piece number 5, 2 pieces of those, and the lower section, which is piece number 6. You have 2 pieces of those as well. And then you've got the tab, which is piece number 7. You've got piece number 7 is this rectangular piece. This part you have interfacing on the lining fabric and on the exterior fabric, or the outside fabric, sorry. So go ahead and do that. All the interfacing. Another thing you're going to want to do as you go along is you're going to want to make sure you trim the interfacing. As you can see, the interfacing sticking out of my pocket here. It just makes it so much easier to go ahead and just trim them all, get rid of all the little excess interfacing all around the edges. Okay, now that we have interfacing on everything that we need interfacing on, we go on to the next step, which is step number 3. This has to do with the handle, which is your outside fabric. You are going to take the outer edges along the short side and fold it in 1/4 inch, and then go ahead and iron that down. Okay, now that I have folded down the edges of the handle, you are going to fold the long side ends into the center. Now there is a marking on the pattern piece, a line straight through, but what I normally do is just fold this thing in half. And since there is interfacing on there, I can crease it pretty well. And I can see where the center line is. Then you're going to fold each side down like this, making sure your edges are in. Go ahead and pin that because you will want to iron it down. So I'm pinning it. So I've got one side down, and then I'm going to take the other half, fold it into the center, and pin that. So it's going to look like this. Now go ahead and iron the edges along both sides. Okay, I folded both sides in and ironed them along with making sure my ends are in. And then the next step is you're just going to fold that whole piece in half again. Just like that. And that is your handle. Once you've folded it and ironed it, you're going to want to do an edge stitch right along the short sides and the edge that's open, about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Make sure on the ends here, you will have a little bit sticking out just because that's what happens. Just push that in, get it stitched so it's nice and clean for your handle. Now we're on step 6, where we're going to sew the handle to the top lid. Now, I'm choosing this side of the handle. It's got more blue in it. What you're gonna do, you've got your piece, which it's piece number 3 for the small, number 13 for medium, and number 23 for the large. And you will see there are little lines right here that are placement lines for your handle. I went ahead and drew on them with some chalk right here and right here. I don't recommend using a fabric marker because you're not going to be washing this. So those are hard to get out. At least the chalk, you can just take a washcloth and get it out of there. Now you're going to take your handle and put it on that line. We'll start with this side. You're going to put it on that line right here, and you're going to sew 1/4 of an inch from the edge, and then you're going to sew again a little bit in from that. You just basically want this to be a really tight stitch because this is the lid that you're going to be carrying, your carrying case. And then you'll do the same thing with the other side of the top of the handle. Okay, so I have sewn my handle on. Now what I did, instead of sewing close to the edge and then sewing 1/4 of an inch, which is what the directions say, I just went a stitch back and forth quite a few times. Back and forth, back and forth. And then since going backwards is hard to keep it straight, I pulled it and then turned it and did the same thing. So I've got probably 4 passes on here, I think, for my handle to make sure that it is on there really strong. So step number 7 has to do with piping. Now, like I said in the beginning, here's my piece. If you've got enough fabric to make piping out of your fabric, you need to first start out with a bias tape. So basically you're cutting 2 long pieces on the bias, which you'll see the arrow here. You do not want to cut it straight across like that or up and down. You for sure want to cut it on the bias because what that does is it makes it stretchy. And so I had just a few pieces that I could cut just to show you. This is cut on the bias. Something like, this is all cut on the bias, so I can't really show you. Something like this is not cut on the bias and it's not as stretchy. If it's cut on the bias, it's nice and stretchy. And what you'll want to do is take a cord, a 3/8 inch cord, place it in the center of the bias piece you just cut. So then you can fold it in half like this. Okay, fold it in half, and then you're going to use a zipper foot to sew right along the edge where the cord is. So now you've made your own little cord, or I'm sorry, your own piping in the fabric. Since I did not have enough fabric for a piping, I went and bought my own pre-made piping, which is the BASTE Maxi piping. And so it's basically just, you've got the cord on the end here, and it's brown bias tape folded over. So it's a pre-made cord. So that's step number 7. So if you are making your own cord or piping, go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we are on to step number 8. This has to do with the piping. So you're going to take the piping that you just made, or your pre-made piping, and basically lay it out along the top and the bottom. I've got pins all along mine. So the edge of the piping is going to be just a little bit into the seam allowance, and then you've got the actual piping right here. So you can see the edge here. I poke myself. The cord part is on the inside, and right along the edge is the outside of your piping. It's going to be right to the inside of your seam allowance. At the corners, I don't know if you can tell here, I made little triangles all along the corners. There you go, you can see it easier in the lighter color here. I clipped triangles there so that you can make the curve. And now you're going to sew it on. In the instructions, it talks about first matching up your end here, but what I recommend is first off, you want to have about 1/2 inch here on the end, overlapping. I recommend first basting it and leaving the opening here free, and then you can go back in and do all the steps about how to match them up together, which I can show you. But what I would do right now is pin it along the edge. You see my pins are at a perpendicular to the piping. It kind of, I don't know, it seems to just lay better like that. Go ahead and use your zipper foot so that you're able to get right up to the piping, to the cord in there, and baste it all along the cord. When you get to the end where it's open, just leave that opening, leave it a couple stitches out so that we can mess with that next. You also want to do that on the bottom piece. So you see I'm finishing up pinning my cord to the bottom piece. And this is the piece that I forgot last time. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so I have sewn my piping on all the way around, and now we're going to match up the ends. Now, I actually recommend you doing this first on the bottom piece, only because that is the part you don't see right away. What you're going to do is you are going to trim them down so they're closer together in size, and you're basically just going to open up part of the bias tape and trim the cord down. You'll want the cords to just match up like that, and then cover over the bias tape. So you see the cords, the one end of the cord goes into the other end of the bias tape, match them up, and then you're going to just sew right along the edge there. So they will all form one long cord. Okay, step number 11 is where we're going to shorten the interior zipper. Now, if you're doing a small bag, you should have a 7-inch zipper. A medium, you should have 9-inch, and a large, you should have 12. Now, of course, I only have a 7, so I do not have to shorten mine. But what you're going to want to do, because chances are you've got the correct size zipper, For small and medium bags, you are going to measure in 3/4 of an inch from the end stop here, and you're going to whip stitch, meaning you're just going to stitch back and forth a few times, so you're basically forming a new stopper for your zipper. I usually do it on the machine, but you can use just by hand. If you're doing a large zipper, you're going to want to go in 1 3/4 of an inch to whip stitch there. Then it talks about whip stitching on the end where your zipper is. And basically what that means is you're just sewing the ends together right here. We're going to put the tab on top of this, so you don't want your ends slipping apart. So I have gone and whip stitched the end here, and I've also done it down on this end because I didn't have to whip stitch since it's such a small zipper, but I wanted to make sure my ends stay together. Now, once you whip stitch, then you can cut the zipper. However, I recommend that you make sure your zipper fits on the lid correctly. It probably should be a little longer, but since I've got a smaller zipper, it'll do fine. So go ahead and do that. Now, step number 12 was extremely confusing for me. That has to do with these little pieces that we've cut out, the 4 square pieces. There should be 4. Now I don't know where my 4th piece is. Oh, there it is. So the directions are extremely confusing. The directions show this little picture here, where you've got your tab number 10 for the small piece, and it shows cutting out. It makes no sense. Basically, what it is, I finally figured out, is that you are covering up the ends of your zipper with the tab. And what I did is I just cut it out based on the size of your zipper. Go ahead and cut it out a little bit larger than the zipper for right now, and then we trim it down. But that's what you're going to do for the next step. So go ahead and cut the 4 pieces out of your tab number 10. Step number 13 is taking these tabs that we've just cut out, and just to show you, I took my zipper and I basically cut the tab just a little larger than my zipper. And then you're going to take each tab, each of the 4 tabs, and fold it over 1/4 of an inch and iron it down. Now, step number 14, you're going to take your zipper and the tabs that are now ironed down, and you are going to place them right sides to right side on either end of the zipper. So we've got the end here. I'll put it down so you can see. This is one of the ends. You're going to put the folded over tab, folded over side on the end closest to the zipper. Place it down, and you're just going to baste there, and then you're going to stick the other side, right sides to right sides, right over it. Just like that. So the only part of these tabs that are going to be sewed is this end over here where the flaps are folded over or folded under. You're just going to have that basted right there. Make sure it is as straight as possible. And you're going to do that on both ends. It'll be just before the end of the zipper. Like that, and it'll be basted right there as well. And again, make sure these are as straight as possible. Okay, I have basted, first I basted my tabs on, and then I went ahead and stitched them again because you really want them on there tight. So there you go. I've got my 2 tabs. Now you're going to trim them along to be the sides, to be about the size of the zipper. Okay, so I am stopping at my zipper. The next step is where we're going to trim these down to make it about the width of the zipper. But it's Saturday night, it is 7 o'clock, and I've already got my margarita. So I'm going to go watch a movie and relax. And I will be back tomorrow to hopefully finish this.